Have you ever been told you're too much simply because you feel so deeply? For neurodivergent souls with autism and ADHD, emotions aren't just fleeting experiences, they're tidal waves, carrying not only present feelings, but often generations of unprocessed pain. But here's the truth. The real problem isn't the depth of our emotions, it's a world that doesn't know how to hold them. Keep listening. Welcome to the Inner Magic Academy podcast. If you're loving our videos, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks and enjoy this episode. Welcome, I'm your host Peter Magic, and if you've ever felt like your emotions are too heavy for others to handle, or that you've had to suppress what's real just to survive in workplaces or relationships, this episode is for you. The key themes we'll explore today are the emotional weight neurodivergence carry, so why we often absorb and feel more than what we're supposed to. Suppression versus expression, so why it's not our emotions that are the problem, but the shame and silence we're forced into. Performance-driven systems, so how workplaces and societal structures measure us by output instead of humanity. And becoming the change, so why speaking openly about our experiences helps create spaces where authenticity is safe. So the key question to today's podcast is, how can we build environments inside ourselves and around us that honor neurodivergent emotions instead of suppressing them? Let's dive in. The first segment we're going to get into is the burden of suppression. So when it comes to our emotions run deep for neurodivergent people. It's not just what happens in the moment, it's the way our brains and bodies process everything on a heightened level. For many of us, this isn't just feeling sadness or joy, it's carrying the emotional residue of childhood neglect, rejection, or abandonment. Sometimes it even feels like carrying generations of unresolved pain through our sensitivity. And yet, instead of being supported to process this, many of us were taught to hide it, to keep the tears in, to toughen up, to stop overreacting. That suppression doesn't just disappear, it turns into shame, guilt, or even meltdowns when the body can't contain it anymore. So in this part, what I actually want to open up and share with you is how suppression feels in daily life. So the exhaustion of masking, the way emotions build up like pressure in a bottle, and how freeing it feels when we finally give ourselves permission to express what's really inside. So summarizing all the things here, when you look in society and when you look in particular the way workplaces are and so forth, like it's just not designed to really hold the space for neurodivergence, for people that experience the world on a more heightened level, in the way that not only through their sensitivity, the way they experience things through that, through their emotions. There's so much going on that their nervous system's absorbing, soaking up, and their brain can't possibly process and move through everything that's going on. And so there's so much that we hold on to and are able to consciously process and move through. Not only our early upbringing, it creates and forms this identity to kind of protect, to suppress, to hold on to things, because we don't have the ability to consciously process and move through things as children, being in environments that were maybe unsafe, unpredictable. We didn't have parents that mirrored back to us how to move through our emotional body and connect with that, and how to even express, because everything that's mirrored back to us is through our parents, through our guardians, through our caregivers, and then we go through the schooling system, and then we go into a workplace, and the way you look, the way it is, it's all there to sort of, it's focusing on productivity. It's not focusing on the way we function. And there's so much that society doesn't see that's playing out underneath the surface, that people are holding back. They're either masking, they're suppressing, they're not able to fully express themselves and really have enough time to process and move through everything that they're absorbing, their nervous system, and everything that they've, again, suppressed in the past. And generationally, this is something that we continue to carry. We hold on to that baggage. It's passed on to the next generation. And just look the way we are in survival in this world. We're working most of our lives and we really struggle to hold space for each other. And if you look how people are masking in, work environments, school environments, even, people are really struggling to connect and express what they're experiencing in every moment where, a lot of their emotions are being stirred up, and they really feel a lot of guilt, a lot of shame when they project a lot of these deep, intense emotions and feelings out. And a lot of the time when the nervous system can no longer hold on to this, it's overflowing. And a lot of people do, feel guilt and shame for projecting this out in these work environments. And we're basically looked upon, in humanity as, through productivity, through how much output we do. And a lot of workplaces are just focused on making money. It's all about profit. It's not about how we function. There's so much that a lot of us, particularly in neurodivergence, we experience the world differently, and we can't continue to just churn out things day in day out like robots. We're not emotionless. We experience things intensely through our senses. Some of us are more wired more intensely in our emotions and how we experience through feeling, and we're absorbing so much through our environments. And we need to be able to express what we're feeling. We need to be able to move our energy through what we're feeling in each and every moment. Otherwise, we suppress that, we mask, we hide. And at some point, our nervous system starts to overflow. It can't possibly continue to absorb and hold on to everything, and we overflow and project that out. And we're judged for that. And we feel a lot of shame for that. And so it's because, we're judged on our output. We're not looked upon in how we function as neurodivergent beings. And a lot of workplaces, for example, they just don't understand. They only understand things at a surface level. We're all put into one box, but underneath the surface, there's so much more going on that they don't see, that they don't understand. And we need to start to express that as neurodivergent beings in particular workplaces we're in. Otherwise, nothing will ever change. The people that actually experience the world as they do in a more heightened way need to start to face the discomfort, face things with courage, and start to change things within the system if they're working a system job. Or, for example, I'm here to create something new. I'm here to show other neurodivergent beings how to start to move through this, how to start to process through your emotional body, to start to regulate your nervous system, to start to, not do what society tells you to do in the way the current system, current workplaces, schooling environments, whatever is going on, how they're telling you how to be. We need to start to change things based on how we experience the world. And neurodivergence, we're not all put into one box. We experience the world differently in many different ways through our senses. And for example, for me, it's all about feeling, emotion, and not only emotion, but like just what I feel around me through the collective energy is constantly affecting me and stirring things up in my emotional body, in my nervous system. And, a lot of the time I'm experiencing a lot of nervous system dysregulation. There's a lot of emotions being stirred up. There's a lot of feelings, and at times I struggle to contain that. My nervous system starts to overflow. I need to express that. So this is an outlet. Doing this podcast, it's an outlet that allows me to express myself through all of those emotions and feelings that are coming up in each and every moment. And this is why this particularly is very important for me. But there are many neurodivergents that, they're in workplaces and things, and they don't have this outlet through which they can express themselves. And they're constantly working, constantly in survival, and there's so much that is suppressed. There's so much they're holding back. There's so much they don't yet know and understand within themselves through their neurodivergence. And this pattern, this cycle continues to play out, and the current system doesn't understand, you know, the functionality of what it's like as a neurodivergent being, that experiencing the world as you do, because, you know, neurodivergents need to change that. Neurodivergents need to speak up about that. We need to start to express everything that we're feeling, we're experiencing, the way that we experiencing it. And just because I'm sharing what I'm sharing here now through my own experience, it doesn't mean that's exactly what you're experiencing through your neurodivergence. And this is why it's so important to express yourself and, you know, everything that you're experiencing, and don't feel guilty or shameful for expressing everything that you're moving through, you're experiencing, because that's your experience. And, you know, you're valid in everything that you're experiencing, everything that you're moving through. And it's so important to start to normalize this and share this within society. Before we move on to the next segment, I'll get you to reflect on this one question. When you think back, what was the first time you remember being told you were too sensitive or that your emotions were too much? And how did that moment shape the way you express yourself now? The second segment we're going to get into is a world obsessed with performance. So we live in a culture that values output over authenticity. Workplaces are structured around productivity metrics, deadlines, and performance reviews. But what happens when your brain doesn't operate in a linear, robotic way? What happens when your emotional world is as real and demanding as the tasks on your to-do list? For neurodivergent individuals, this often means being forced into survival mode, constantly performing, constantly proving, constantly suppressing. You can't walk into work after a meltdown and say, I need to process what just happened. You can't tell your boss, this task feels overwhelming because I'm overstimulated. Instead, you swallow it down, you perform, you pretend you're fine. This isn't just about workplaces either. It's how society at large measures worth. Are you productive? Are you achieving? Are you contributing? But where in these questions is, are you okay? Are you supported? Do you feel safe? So really what I'm inviting you through this section is to name that imbalance. To say out loud that neurodivergent people are not machines, and performance-driven environments are missing the point of what it means to be human. To expand on all the things that I just mentioned here, it doesn't matter what environment you're in, whether that's a schooling environment, a working environment, whatever environment you're in, you look and you see just how people really struggle to hold space for each other. You know, people are constantly performing, constantly doing, and we are so basically immersed in all of that we struggle to ask people around us. We struggle to communicate on a more deeper level. We keep things surface level, and we're all just focused on the task at hand. We're focused on the output. We're focused on being measured by all of these things, okay? But how often are we asked these other questions? You know, do you need the support? Are you okay? You know, we have a day already, one day in the entire year. Are you okay day? One day. How many days do you have in a year? 365 days a year. How many days do you experience, you know, through your neurodivergence? You don't know what each day is going to offer. You don't know what's going to come up in each and every moment. And how often do those people around you, your boss, your colleagues, and so forth, how often can they hold space for you? How often are you able to just have, you know, a moment where you can communicate and express things that are going on? Like, how often do they ask you these questions? And away from the productive side and the output side of doing and being focused on that, because we're so focused on the output, we're so focused on the businesses are so focused on profit, making the money. We're looked upon as machines, as robots. we're human beings. We have emotions, not only emotions. We experience the world through our neurodivergence, and we're so much that we're soaking up through our outer environment, so much that we're picking up that we're not even consciously aware of. The other people's thoughts, other people's emotions, like depending on how we're wired and so forth and what we're picking up, we are picking things up through that environment, through others as well. And we're not even consciously aware of this. So this is going underneath the surface. This is going a little bit more deeper. And a lot of this is affecting us. It's affecting how we're feeling. It's affecting the thoughts that we're experiencing, those looping thoughts. It's affecting our nervous system. Okay, so it makes a huge difference when we're in an environment where people struggle to communicate, hold space for each other, where we're so focused on the output and the productivity, on what we're doing in terms of performance, and we're not looked upon as how we're functioning through those environments. We're not asked enough questions, like we're not given the space to express what we're experiencing. And because a lot of people struggle to do that, we don't know how to do that in workplaces. We don't even know how to do that within ourselves, because we're so programmed in society to just be on the go, to be in our brains. We're so disconnected from our bodies, from our nervous system. We're not regulating our nervous system and what we're experiencing. And there's so much that is being stirred up that we're continuing to suppress, we're continuing to mask, we're continuing to hide. And at some point, as a neurodivergent being, when you overflow and you project things out, you feel then shameful for that. And then you're judged for that. And people around you don't even understand what's going on. And you're judged for that moment, that experience that you've had. But the amount of times you've suppressed, you've masked, you've hid, you've held yourself back, you've tried your best to fit in, you've tried your best to, continue to do the work, the output, but you are not a robot. You are a human being with emotions, and you experience the world as you do through your neurodivergence in the unique way that you do. And there's so much that you are picking up around your environment through others. So much that's going on underneath the surface, and we don't know and understand on a more deeper level in society yet. We're only starting to unravel these things more and more, because more neurodivergents are speaking up about what it's like to experience the world in the deep, intense way that you do. And these systems, these structures that are in place just don't focus on the functionality of what it's like to be human, not be a robot that churns out over and over again, and focus on the performance, focus on the outputs, on the targets, on focusing on that, and thinking that you're going to continue to perform in the same way. And so many neurodivergents are, doing the best they can, but they can't continue to churn out day in, day out the same, because there are moments where they just struggle to function. And so this is the problem. This lies the problems in society. Schooling environments, workplace environments do not understand. They do not really know what's going on a deeper level. And there's nothing in place to provide the support they need. 1 day a year, Are You Okay Day, 1 day a year. Out of 365 days, you do not have 1 day a year where you struggle to function. You can struggle to function each and every day, and you might have several days where you can suppress, mask, and hide, and do your best to hold yourself back. But at some point, your nervous system overflows, and you can no longer hold on to that. And this is the problem. We need to be able to process and move through whatever we're moving through and express that. And we need to have the space, the environments in which other people know and understand that and can hold space for us and have all the accommodations and support and things that we need to have moments in our day that we can talk about things, we can express ourselves, rather than masking, hiding, holding ourselves back, and constantly being measured for our performance, for our productivity. Before we move on to the next segment, I'll get you to reflect on this one question. Where in your life have you felt pressured to perform or keep up, even when your emotional reality was asking for rest, support, or understanding? The third segment we're going to get into is shifting the culture. So this is where the change actually begins with conversations like this one. The truth is, every time we name our reality, we open a door for others to do the same. By talking about emotions not as weaknesses but as wisdom, we start dismantling the belief that sensitivity equals fragility. Shifting the culture doesn't always mean changing entire systems overnight. It starts small with how we talk to ourselves, how we allow ourselves to feel, and how we support one another in community. Imagine what could happen if workplaces measured well-being alongside performance. Imagine if families taught kids that emotions are safe, not shameful. Imagine if being too much was rebranded as being deeply connected. I want to close this segment by reminding you, your emotions aren't a burden, they're a compass. The more you honor them, the more you teach the world how to hold space for what's actually real. So, expanding on all of this, what I actually wanted this podcast episode to really be about is just how we struggle to hold space for one another in society, and we blindly follow the systems that are in front of us, and we're so focused on productivity, and we struggle to know and understand, being human beings and being neurodivergent beings based on functionality, how we function. We've got to start to look at ourselves as we're not robots, and we can't just churn in, day out, and perform in the same way each and every day and expect everything that we're experiencing through our environment, through familiar environments, through our relationships, for everyone around us. We can't just expect that, nothing else is affecting us underneath the surface subconsciously, because it is. Our outward environment, through others, things are constantly being stirred up. And there's so much that we carry that doesn't just go away, this emotional residue that we're carrying through the generations within our DNA, within our nervous system. We're holding traces within us. And when we don't consciously start to connect more with each other, hold space for each other, and, understand ourselves on a more deeper level underneath the surface, the more we don't connect with that, the more disconnected we are, the more our brain's is trying to run away from. It's always trying to chase, and it's always trying to mask and to hide, and it's trying to avoid everything that's happening underneath the surface that is constantly being stirred up. And our nervous system is going to overflow, and we're going to project things out through trauma. We're going to project things out through these intense emotions and feelings that are coming up beneath the surface. Whatever we've internalized, whatever we've attached a meaning to in the past, these things will continue to play out throughout, familiar environments, through others, in workplaces, environments, in schooling environments, whatever environments you're in will continue to play out unless we continue to face that, and unless we continue to take the time to not only connect with one another, to hold space for one another in society, to focus on not only how we perform, but how we function as human beings. And this is so, so important to really start to shift the culture. And as a neurodivergent being, you've got to face that with courage. You've got to start to speak up, because the more of us that speak up about what it's like as a neurodivergent being wide in the way that you are, experiencing the world the way that you do, unless you actually start to know and understand yourself on a more deeper level, you're not going to be able to express what that's like, because there's that suppression, and you're going to struggle to express that and communicate that to others from more of a conscious place. And this is why this is so important, not only to go down this healing journey, to really start to, face that with courage and an open heart and open mind, and stop focusing on things at a surface level. And what's currently in place, is just focused on how we're performing and how, through productivity, it's not focusing on functionality as a human being, as the way that you're wired through your neurodivergence. And I just wanted this podcast episode to be about this and to really start to just normalize what it's really like. And there's many more episodes that I'm going to go deeper into this, but like, this is just a start. And I really want others to start to share their own stories about what it's like as a neurodivergent being and how you're experiencing the world, and not only connecting with me through this community, but also being brave and courageous and starting to share this out. It doesn't have to be on social media, just being brave and starting to share this through those familiar environments that you're in, whether it's a workplace environment, a schooling environment, whatever environment you're in. The more you start to express what it's like, the more you face that with courage and an open heart and open mind, the more we actually start to create change, because we're creating change from the inside out. We're starting to express more what's underneath the surface. And so, because we start to then see it more in society, okay? And that's so important, to start to actually see this more and normalize this more. And that's really what this is all about. Before we move on, I'll get you to reflect on this one question. What's one small way you can begin to create more emotional safety in your own life or for someone else this week? We're coming to the end of today's episode, and I have a final reflection for you. Your emotions aren't flaws. They're signals, wisdom, and energy moving through you. So it's not your sensitivity that needs fixing. It's the systems around you that need reimagining. And every time you choose to honor what you feel, you help rewrite that story. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need to hear it today. And for more weekly reflections on healing through neurodivergence, visit innermagicacademy.com and join our mailing list. Thanks for joining me here on the Inner Magic Academy podcast. Until next time, keep honoring your depth, your sensitivity, and your truth. I love you. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel and give us a like or even a comment. It really does help so much in getting our work out there to the people who need it. We're so grateful for you being here, and we'll see you for the next episode.